Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream. My name is Ruan Marino, and if you're new to this channel, I'm going to be talking about advertising, my favorite topic. If you've come to my previous live streams, this is going to be a continuation of everything I've been talking about, which is how to do local advertising extremely effectively. So I've got a couple of real examples that I'm going to be walking you guys through, and hopefully this gives you the knowledge and the confidence to actually do this yourself. And throughout the live stream, I'm going to be going over several examples. I'm going to be going over different tools that I use. And I'm going to be showing you really launching some ads, running some reports so that you can see my process from in and out. So I hope to accomplish that throughout this entire live stream. And I've got some nice water with me. I've got some San Pellegrino, and then I have some Fiji water, which are going to be things that I'm going to need to hydrate throughout it because as you talk for an hour and a half or whatever time frame I last for, your mouth gets dry. And so I really like using these high quality waters. I'm a really big believer right now that water is going to become something that's a little scarce, especially high quality water. I've noticed it's had such an impact on me just day in and day out drinking good water. I don't trust the tap water. I know it's a huge debate whether tap water is good for you or not, but I prefer having some nice water. So with that being said, I've got stuff to keep me hydrated. Let's get started and let's get things moving. So I'm going to be going through a couple of things here. The first is I have a really nice little presentation that I put together for you guys. And throughout this presentation, I think you're going to learn a ton. And just so you're aware, I've spent a ton of time preparing this stuff with real data, real clients, real information, etc. I don't like making hypotheticals. And the reason for that is because I feel like a lot of people, including myself, when I come onto this channel, I try to hide things and it's really difficult. It's really sensitive. Sometimes you're showing people's business information and they might not be comfortable with that. And so before I make videos like this, I talk to the people that I'm going to highlight. So if they ever do come across this, it's not an awkward conversation. But I find that we resonate well when we're showing real examples. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you today. I've been talking a lot about lifetime value, which is a really critical metric, as well as cost per acquisition, which is also a critical metric, and why you need to present it that way. So I'm going to kind of continue that conversation on today's live. So let's get started. So here's the presentation. The first thing that we're going to do is when you're working with a client, we want to set some pretty clear expectations. The biggest clear expectation that you can set with somebody is actually setting the actual budget correctly. I found that a lot of the times when we set a budget, we're not using data to justify our budget, especially when you're working with a client, which is why I built SplashDash, because that's a tool that you can log into and create a lot of these great insights in one single place for a lot of the different things that you're going to be needing when you're talking to a customer. So every time that we work with a business, there's a couple of key factors that we're looking at when we're setting clear budgets. That is their location, which is based on the population. If there isn't enough population to meet their business goals that they want, you should be setting the right expectations. If someone tells you that they want 25 new leads per week, but the population just isn't enough to generate that, you've got to be able to set the right expectation. I had a meeting with a plumber today and he told me he wanted 25 new leads. So in a future video, when I break that down, if I can't get that correct expectation with him, we'll be looking at different reasonable expectations. The second thing is the cost per click in your industry. Now, of course, cost per click varies depending on your strategy, whether it's broad match, whether it's exact match, etc., whether you're doing meta, whether you're doing TV, whether you're doing billboards. Regardless, the cost per click or your cost per 1,000 impressions, which is how much is it going to cost you to reach 1,000 people, is absolutely critical. And then the final one is what your conversion rate is going to be. So if I get 1,000 people to a website page, how well are those people going to convert? And we know the obvious things: the photos, the videos, the copy, the offer. Those are all things that contribute to a conversion rate. In fact, little scientific things like the person on the page, it really matters. How well are they groomed? What are they wearing? How well are they positioned? Does the site load fast? We tend to overlook a lot of these cognitive biases and just look at the standard factual data, when in reality, we judge things at 1,000 miles per hour. So you've got to understand that when you're creating a lot of this digital marketing strategy, you are working with the subconscious mind. You are trying to tap into someone's subconscious mind so that they can make decisions they're not even aware of that they're making. So we're going to talk about some of those cognitive biases as I go through the presentation today. But if you have any questions throughout the presentation, put it in the comment section and I'll be glad to answer it. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to run an ad budget simulation. Now, an ad budget simulation is basically going to allow me to log into SplashDash and find the ad budget that's recommended for a given area. For this case scenario, we're going to be working with a business that does basements And I'm going to talk about why we're going to be doing basements specifically. It's not just random. This is an advisory strategy here. And the reality of the fact is, if you look at the term basement finishing, this is an example, you can see that the term starts to trend well during this time frame. So if I just dialed into basement finishing services, you can see that in October, that's actually really high. So it's a good time for us to start advertising that as opposed to the other service that we've been advertising, which is the actual roofing. And so, as you guys know, a lot of businesses, when they're working with these different types of things, the roofing keyword starts to really drop off after October. So we don't want to focus on that anymore. So instead of telling the customer to stop advertising overall, we instead adjust the budget where it needs to be. Because if you stop advertising, there is a bunch of reasons why that's not good for a business. And oftentimes what will happen is when you turn that off, they'll notice they stopped getting so many leads. And I've said this in a past video, and it's really critical for you to understand, especially if you're doing this for other people, that they're not going to attribute their success to you. If they did, you would probably charge them more. So clients are going to be very weary to tell them how much you're helping them. I just want to make that very clear. They're going to attribute the success to their business and what they're doing because they're spending their lifeblood, sweat, and tears in there. You're just turning on ads. So even though the ads has this major effect on their brand, they're not going to attribute it that way. So just be prepared and keep your confidence. In fact, I recommend you throw out any pride when working with these businesses. It's okay to have internal pride, and that's all right, but you don't want to get into the habit of trying to claim credit for everything. This is so ingrained in my mind right now that we're actually thinking about taking off the logo. And when we make a website, we put the logo at the bottom so people can see that we made the work. But when you really think about what benefit is that serving? What benefit is pride serving you? So you want to let the customer enjoy the successes, but you also in the back of your head really want to understand that if things are going well, it's likely because the advertising strategy is working, but it's very difficult to attribute. And the only way to attribute that is results, year-over-year performance, not month-over-month performance. I've talked in a past video about why month-over-month performance is useless, especially because most businesses are seasonal. For a dentist, let's say, a lot of people are going to start going there in the beginning of the year. They're not thinking about going to the dentist during Christmas, during Thanksgiving, during Halloween even. They're thinking about that when their insurance benefits renew. For a roofing business, why would you compare a month that was going to be busy versus the next month? Of course, your leads are going to drop. That's expected. The moment you change that shift to year over year, you can actually see if things start growing or not. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and start a basement refinishing campaign to generate more leads. And I'm going to walk you through my psychology and my process behind that. And I'm pretty much going to guarantee this customer results. Yes, guarantee this customer results. Because when you do it this way, you can be that confident. And most of the times, guarantees are really looked down upon because it makes you sound like a scam artist. In reality, if you know how to do the process well, it's a science. It's not a gamble. If you wanted to gamble, you can just go to the casino. So we don't want the customer to go to the casino. So let's go into the ad budget simulation and let's really break this down. So I'm going to put in the client's information. And if you guys are using SplashDash, you can do this yourselves too, directly inside of it. I'm going to put the business name. I'm going to put the keyword, which is going to be basement finishing. I'm going to put the conversion rate here at 5%. So to assume that for every 100 visitors they get from the ads, they're going to convert 5% into a lead. The close ratio, I'm going to put 33%. Guys, that's a really good average, by the way. So like if you get 10 leads, you're going to close 3 of them. And if you're not sure and you're not confident of what these metrics would look like for your specific business, there is nothing wrong with actually asking ChatGPT that information. So if you wanted to just get some standards and you didn't know from the business, you could ask a couple simple questions. For basement refinishing, let's say, if that was the niche we were working in, what's the average close rate? And then you can ask, what's the average order rate? So like, what's the average amount they charge? So if you wanted to use that, you can use that. I found that when a lot of people use Ad Budget Simulator inside of SplashDash, they don't necessarily know what to put this in. The best way to do this is by actually just asking the customer. So for example, today I was talking to a plumber and they do a lot of sewer and drain. And he told me that the range could be from $200 to $750. But the key question there was, how often does that customer buy from you? And he said every 2 to 3 years. So now my return on investment is not just one time $700, it's $700 every 3 years. So if I bring you that customer through scientific advertising and you keep that customer over that time frame, you're making a lot of money, but you paid very little for that customer. That's where people typically get confused when they start thinking about advertising. They think about it as one-time lead, one-time sale. They're not necessarily thinking about the long term. So if you have this information and you want this information for your specific niche and you don't know what to put in, you can ask ChatGPT and it will typically provide you with a result. And then that result, if you don't have it from the customer, best thing you can do is actually get it from the customer, of course. But you can see that it's going to give you some information here. So a typical remodeling close ratio would be about 35%. Let's say it was 20 to 30%, etc. Typically, they charge 15 to 75,000, and you can see that that data is there. So in this case, I actually know what the data is. It's 33% that they're going to close, and then the average revenue per customer is going to be $20,000. And then I'm going to put $38 for cost per 1,000 impressions. Again, you can use your own data here if you know what your cost per 1,000 impressions is on average for your Google Ads. At Develomark, we manage hundreds of customers, and so we can easily see what our cost per 1,000 impressions is at an account level. If you're a niche agency or you're working with a specific category or a specific vertical, you can put that number in there. I will let you know that for Google search, it's $38. So on average, regardless of your industry, it's most likely going to cost you $38 to reach 1,000 people. And that's what that CPM is, the cost per 1,000 impressions, the cost per mile. Every advertising network uses it that way. And that's how Ad Budget Simulator is calculating these results. So let's go back into it. So from there, I'm going to pick one location. I typically recommend that a customer focuses directly in their target location. And I want to explain that for just a second, because if you've been doing this for quite some time, you've probably had people come to you and say, I want to target everywhere. And that's just not a realistic outcome, but you can't blame the customer for that. They don't know what they don't know. But in reality, think about it this way. If it takes 18 times for a brand to be seen before it's considered, you want to start as local as possible. Most of our campaigns, when we start working with the customer, we do within a 1 to 5 mile radius, and we see the results start pouring in because there's so many people in that funnel that just need to be remembered that you exist for them to convert. So if you're working with a customer, tone them down, do a breathing exercise with them, and help them understand the clarity of people have been seeing your trucks, people have been seeing your logo, people have been seeing your business. Repeat customers are going to see these ads. You're going to see these ads. So that's why I start really local to their primary organic location. Now, I want to be very clear with you guys what that means. Primary organic location for me is where that business is physically located. So in our SEO contracts, in our digital marketing contracts, we typically guarantee them results in their primary organic location. Why is that important? Well, they have service areas. This business has service areas, and they're ranking for a ton of different things because we do their SEO too. However, you can't guarantee somebody results where they don't have a Google Maps listing, because search engines, ad networks, they're going to target where you have a physical location. That's the benefit of working with businesses that are multi-location. You can really have fun with the advertising. But generally speaking, I like to target the most local that I can get, because that business already has brand recognition inside of that actual area. So that's what we mean by the actual primary organic location. Something else to note too is if you're doing position tracking, or if you're tracking keywords, or if you're running AI visibility reports inside of SplashDash, I wanted to make it very clear that put Wolkit in there, or put the town that you're working with in there. Don't just put the broad keyword, because you're not going to get good results. Anytime I send a position tracking report, I focus on their primary organic location. If there's multiple websites, I will focus on different primary organic locations for each of the ones that have a Google business profile. But I cannot do your local SEO unless you have a location in that area. Very critical for you guys to understand. And your time to result is going to be a lot faster. So let's pull up the report. As you can guys see, I ran it, and we have a couple of key metrics here. The conversion rate, I'm going to be conservative here with 2%, and the close rate, I'm going to go to 33%. Now, just understanding this math a little bit, if the customer closes 33% of their leads at a 2% conversion rate and they charge $20,000, that's how most of the data in this report is going to actually show. I left this as a way to be editable because I know a lot of businesses are different. So I really want to make sure that you can put your metrics inside of here. And then we're using general cost per click data as well. Every market's going to be different. So anything that you create during the sales process, or during a conversation, or during a persuasion process here, using SplashDash data or using any tool's data, typically give it a big disclaimer that these are estimated. In this case, I have the customer's ad account because we're simply just doing more for this customer. But in most cases, like the plumber that I was working with today, I don't have his ad account. He's running ads. He's doing his own thing. I don't have access to that. So in your first conversation with somebody, it's better to be prepared with this information than not, just so you can show them what that expectation might look like. So as I scroll down, I'm going to be able to see that I'm going to be able to target the different areas where we want the ads to show. I don't want to remove any of these. These all seem pretty good. I'm going to be able to see the different types of income levels. Typically, we want to go for families that have a little bit of higher income. And I'll keep that one open there too. The race, that doesn't really matter. The age, I want to target people who have homes, so they're a little bit older. And then the gender, I don't really want to fix. I don't really want to change that. Now, for every business, that's going to be different. For every business, they may want to target different ethnicity groups, or maybe you're advising them that they should do that based on population data that you can get inside of SplashDash, or maybe you're targeting a different income. All you're doing when you're configuring that information is you are simply just making the ads more defined. And the more defined you can make the ads, the better. Now, I want to make it very clear that too defined is not a good thing either. You want to let the ad networks do their thing, because AI has been a huge benefit inside of digital advertising. As I'm going to show you when we get later into the video, when we start running some Facebook ads for the client, we let AI do pretty much everything. We've stopped doing any interest targeting. In fact, I stopped doing that a long time ago. I don't want to make the ads so restrictive that they don't serve, because one of the key things with success here is you want your own client to see their own ads. That's the power of retargeting in a small proximity. So many times I'll actually geofence where the customer lives or where their business is. So every time their employees go to work, they continue to see their ads. More on making sure you continue to sell the customer after you sold them later. But I did another live talking a little bit about that in the past. So you can go check that out. The premise is basically when a client starts with you, that's when they've left you. You are on a ticker. You're on a time ticker. They're eventually going to leave you. And so you've got to continue to sell them if you want to maximize your lifetime value. You've already done so much work to get the customer. You want to make sure that you can retain them for a long period of time. At DevelopMark, our average lifetime value is about 36 months. So people will typically stay with us on average of all of our clients, 36 months. Some will leave before a year. Some will leave after 36 months. Some have been our first customers. So you really want to figure out what that average is, and that'll help you understand advertising a little bit better. So in this case, we're going to have 63 ad units, which basically means in this small area, we're going to be able to target 63,000 people based on population data from the US Census Bureau. Important to note that every time you run a SplashDash report, it tells you where it's getting that data. In this case, it's getting it from the US Census Bureau, so you can bet that it's pretty correct. And then we're also using data from Ahrefs to calculate cost per click data. Scrolling down, I'm going to see what the estimated budget is and where that budget should typically go based on my targeting. So in this case, it's going to show me the different cities that I want to target and the amount of people that are in those cities, which is taking that information from the census, giving the amount of ad units, and then the recommended spend for that area. So what this looks like is a couple of different ads inside of Google Ads targeting these different towns like Prospect Basement Finishing, Plymouth Basement Finishing, Woket Basement Finishing, Southington Basement Finishing, etc. All of those landing pages will live live on the website, and those ads will go directly to there with the recommended budget going towards that. So if I were to show this to the customer, this would be the finalized ad spend for search that I would recommend to them to start out with. Now, I want to make a big disclaimer here that this is just an anchor. This is not a perfect number. However, I have found that when I've done research talking to other agencies on how much they would spend for certain things in other areas, we've been pretty accurate. Because you don't want to go too high because it won't spend that much money, or worse, Google will spend your money, Facebook will spend your money, but you're not getting any results, or you're going and reaching irrelevant people, or worse, you get too low. And so you're not spending enough to see any results. The client is going to hold you accountable regardless of the spend. If you tell a customer to spend $500 per month on ads, they're going to hold you just as accountable if they're spending $2,000 a month on ads. So be very cautious with this. And I want to make this point too. For businesses like this, they do a lot of different services. So if you go to their website, you can see that they have a bunch of different services that the business provides. Every time you do an ad budget simulator, every time you run ads for a customer, we're generating ad budgets for each of their different service types. I see the fatal mistake of people running ads and just sending all of the traffic to the homepage and just doing one kind of campaign. And that's never going to be as effective as if you break it out and budget each of the different ad groups. We got another remodeling company that's going to focus on 3 different services over the winter. And so each of those services need different ad budgets, need different sentiment analysis, need a different landing page, need a different call to action, and need a different creative. You can see how much work is put into actually succeeding in this. And that's why we do contracts. The people that tell you to not do contracts are not business people. They're just fly by night. They're just winging it. There's a very small percentage of them that do that very well. And that's okay. Just like there's a small percentage of billionaires in the world, what they did is not what you should base your success off of. There's nothing wrong with the contract. I want to make that very clear. The contract protects you and it protects the client. When you start a working relationship, start with a small contract to get them used to signing an agreement between you two. And as I've mentioned in a past video, a contract is simply a document that is an expectations agreement. I expect this out of you. You expect this out of me for this period of time. At Develomark, we start with 1 year, and then we go 2 years, and then we go 3 years. By the time we're 5, 6 years into that working relationship, the client is comfortable signing longer term agreements. If you're going to put this much energy into a campaign, like the way I'm showing you for this one service type in this video, you're going to want to make sure that that client stays with you for quite some time, because it is extensive work, guys, to go get photos, to go get videos, to run these ads, to build a landing page, to use SplashDash to get the ad budget, to use the other tools that you use to track this all. It's extensive. The problem you don't want to do is you don't want to just create one ad for all of their services. It is a detrimental thing. You are just wasting your time. Even worse, you're throwing the client's money. They have a better chance at winning that back playing roulette. So let's go back into the actual website page here and the ad budget. So going back to the ad budget, that's going to be the recommended budget that we have for search. And then it's going to give me a forecast of how many customers that business is going to potentially get should everything go to plan. So the funnel is very clear here. If we spend $2,300 on ads, we're going to get 849 clicks based on the cost per click for that area. Then if we have a 2% conversion rate, being conservative, and I always recommend you be conservative, we're going to get 17 leads. So 17 leads are going to be 17 conversations that this business is going to potentially have by actually running these ads. Now, those conversations are going to be structured in the form of the contact forms that come through the website, the calls that come through the website. SplashDash is basically saying, based on this area and how much you should spend, you're probably going to get this many results. Granted, everything is perfect. Important to note, we're in a lab right now. Once it's actually in the wild, and we'll come back to a video, I'll do a series 2 of this exact video, you're going to actually see what the results are. But it's hypercritical that you hyper focus on the successes and you continue to build momentum with that client long term. So something just really, really critical to keep in mind. Then if the close rate is 33%, they're going to get 5 customers. Now, guys, if these numbers seem unbelievable to you, like you don't think a client's going to bite this and you don't think they're going to actually think this is real, you can always be more conservative with the information. You can always put the conversion rate at 1%. You can always put the close rate at 1%. But most importantly, you want to really paint a picture to them of how effective this can actually be if it works well. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish with SplashDash. So when you come to a meeting, you have this information at your fingertips. And a lot of the times it is that effective and you just don't know it. And I'm going to show you exactly how to figure out how you know it and when to know it, etc. So based on that, the client can potentially make $97,605 from these ad campaigns if they bill each of those customers. And in this case, it's just 5 customers. So here's what that conversation sounds like. Mr. Customer, if you spend $2,300 on Google Ads in this area for basement finishing, and we focus on what you're really good at, and we make the page focusing on all of the cognitive biases and all of the research that I've done, you're going to get 17 leads. If it's true that you have a 33% conversion rate, meaning you're going to close 33% of those 17 leads, and you're going to charge them $20,000 on average, some might be higher, some might be lower. That's what you told me. You can expect to see a return on investment of $97,000 on the ads, minus the ad spend and minus our fees. That's the kind of conversation that you want to have. Now, that might sound scary to you if this is your first time doing this, but I want to iterate that advertising is extremely powerful. And the client will hide those results from you if they're doing well. And if you're tracking their customer relationship management software, you're going to be able to see that very clearly. And it's going to give you a level of confidence to actually make sure that you get what you want out of the working relationship while they're getting what they want in the working relationship. Now, I'm not saying any side is wrong here. I'm just saying that if you don't understand what your value is, you're never going to build the confidence to successfully scale. So that is one thing that I've done in the past, which is not tracking this stuff and being really bad at that. So as we look at the data here, you can see that the area is extremely diverse. So when we make the website pages and when we do the advertising, we're really going to focus on having a diverse set of families in this area. A lot of people of different ethnicities actually own homes and they all are in this area. But then you can also see the average age is actually a little bit older than your typical area that I've seen. And that's because this is kind of a rural area in the state of Connecticut, which is local to me. This is actually a town over for me, which, by the way, if you can focus on working with local clients, your life's going to get way easier. Seeing people in person, going out to get photos and videos, which we're going to talk about in the slides here, are absolutely critical to getting results. So now that we have some of the ad budget in place, let's go through the data here. So as I mentioned, roofing slows down in November. So we switch. We don't just turn off ads. We switch to a different service. Basements pick up in October. We want to focus on what's picking up and what's going to be trending over time. Makes sense, right? Homeowners are typically going to do this kind of stuff in the winter when they have time. And you really want to focus on that level of strategy with your client to really understand what's next. I've thought that the best way to work a professional relationship really well is to try to predict what's next for the customer without them even knowing it. So if you're coming prepared to this conversation saying, hey, roofing is going to slow down, let's turn that off. By the way, I noticed you do basements and that's going to do very well in the near future. Let's focus on that. Then you can say, hey, you're getting leads for basements, validating that your idea is working. This is working. You're going to have a much more successful client relationship with them, just as a hint. So as we keep going, you cannot rely on search. And I've done SEO for a very long time, and it took me a couple of years to really realize this. But when you do just SEO, you're really capping yourself to a result. For this example, you can see in the last 28 days, this website has gotten 194 clicks from the search engines. Now, even worse, a lot of those clicks are actually just from their brand name. So a lot of businesses, if you're working with them, don't really understand the value of advertising because they haven't been framed correctly. So I got on a call today with another business, and she actually thought advertising didn't work. That was a real belief system that she had. She didn't want to do it. She didn't see the vision of it. And that's okay, because most of the times people advertise, it doesn't do anything for them. In fact, I reiterate that to the DevelopMark team as much as possible, that the typical stereotype of advertising is that someone's going to take your money, throw it away. And that is absolutely mind-blowing. And that's the power of digital. I don't think you realize the opportunity you have to help somebody with this, because you can launch an ad, see what's working, and measure it. And with traditional, you weren't able to do that. You would get new customers, but they wouldn't tell you where they came from. There wouldn't be attribution. There wouldn't be digital. You couldn't see the clicks, etc. So nowadays, most people don't realize that advertising is extremely powerful. And if you're working with somebody that is not convinced, it's a framing issue. And so hopefully data can help you really understand that. But my point here is if you want to grow your business, we can't rely on 194 clicks per month. Now, to some of you guys, you might be thinking that's not a lot of clicks. But the problem with SEO I've found is that a lot of the clicks are irrelevant. You'll get a ton of clicks for your search terms, which is great if you maximize the SEO, but you're typically capped. Like, you have no control over how much somebody's going to search that day. And so when businesses get slow and they're just doing SEO and PPC, that's typically why they're capped out of that advertising source. And so you need to introduce a new advertising source. And my best clients, just so you guys are aware, the ones that have spent the most on advertising, they typically start very small. They start with this $2,000 recommendation. Then I prove to them it's working. Then they start growing a little bit. Then I say, we should introduce Facebook. Then they start growing a little bit. Then I say, we should introduce PPC. Then they start growing a little bit. Then I say, we should introduce streaming. Then they start growing a little bit. That's what you want to do with your customers. The biggest customers you are going to get start at small scales. I want to be very clear about that. No customer is going to come to you and just transfer a gigantic advertising budget to you. That's very rare. Your best customers are going to be the ones that you do this at a small test level and that you scale their advertising spend as it keeps going up. Now, as it keeps going up, they're going to continuously have more risk. And so your connection, your contact with them is going to have to be even more critical. So if you value that customer, you're going to spend a lot of time just making sure they understand everything as they should. They're spending a lot of money. So you want to make sure that you realize you can't grow waiting for people to search for you. Then paying for clicks keeps teams busy. I showed you here that the organic clicks of this website were 194. Just from PPC alone, we had 332 clicks. So this month so far. And so right here, we're already doubled the amount of clicks just from the PPC ad. Now, there's a lot of clicks that are going to be fraud. There's a lot of clicks that are going to be spam. The same thing is happening with SEO. So I wouldn't really think about that too much. The reality of the fact is you can wait 28 days to get 50% of the clicks, or we can just pay to get them for exactly what you're looking for. Now, most people are going to think, oh, well, I'll just skip over the search results in the sponsored ad. That's a framing issue. Most people that are actually interested in that kind of service doesn't think that way. Businesses and entrepreneurs, we think that way. If you're selling SEO, you think that way. If you're doing digital, you might think that way. But the typical homeowner that's in their 60s and they're trying to get a quote, or they're trying to go to a doctor's office, or they're trying to go to a chiropractor, or they're looking for a car to buy, they're not thinking that way. So why wait to get the results when we can just pay and accelerate it? Now, loss aversion is a big thing here. Loss aversion is a cognitive bias that really allows people to think about what they have to lose versus what they have to gain. And it affects everything. I'll give you an example that is so small that happened in our agency today. We started, instead of asking for people to mark the photos they like, we had them mark the photos they don't like. And the photos they don't like are getting more results than them telling us what photos they do like. That's because our brains are wired for loss aversion. We are wired to think about things we don't like, things to remove, instead of thinking about the benefit. So if you think about that, like this headline says when I put this slide here, paying for clicks keeps teams busy. If you don't keep teams busy at your company, what happens? That's a much different conversation than saying, if the ads work, what happens? Well, if I don't keep teams busy, I have to lay people off. They're going to go work for my competitor. I'm not going to generate enough revenue. I'm going to lose my best employee. It's going to hit my ego because the business isn't growing. Year over year, it's not going to look good to the accountant. There's all types of reasons as to why people need to pay attention to this stuff when you frame it as loss aversion. Now, this is not being manipulative. I want to be very clear. All you're doing is putting a spotlight on the issue that it's difficult for a business to see when they're in four walls of their business every single day. They can't see this stuff. They don't think about this stuff all the time until they're addressed with it. That's why we exist. That's why third-party consultants, third-party digital marketing professionals, third-party companies exist. Because when you're in these four walls, you can only see what's in the four walls. When someone comes in externally, they can see and question things that you may not have the guts to do that. So that's why I really tell people, you cannot grow just waiting for people to search for you. And if you do have good SEO, you need to pay for clicks because that's going to get your team busy really quickly. So that's that. Now, replacing the campaign focus is something that we're going to do today that I kind of talked about in the previous one. But typically, this is what the ads look like. They're not anything extravagant. They're not anything extraordinary. They're basically just saying, we do roofs, this to this, click the link, get a free quote. A lot of the times with our advertising, people try to get way too creative. And what happens when you get too creative is you start to confuse the customer of what your value proposition actually is. When I work with customers, I typically have to slow them down and just simply let them know that you just need to tell this person you're a roofing business. You don't need to tell them you're this creative roofing expert solutions and using all of these different types of superlatives. That just turns people off and they read through that very quickly. In fact, they just need to see roofing. And there's a book called Scientific Advertising that I really recommend that you guys read that talks a lot about the science of just telling people what you do and getting enough people to see that and getting results. Business is just clear cut like that. There's nothing creative about roofing. There's nothing creative about what you do. Now, to some, that might sound offensive. And the reality of the fact is the consumer doesn't care what you're offended by. They care about what they're looking for. So a lot of the times our ads will just be dead simple, showing you what we do, clicking through to a page, confirming that, having a clear offer, and usually that'll be enough for you to get results. Being simple is hard. Being complex is easy. The difference between an amateur is the amateur is really complex. The professional is very simple. So I follow that with all of our ads, but you can see that that's what we're going to be replacing today. Now, these are the different ads that we're going to be running today. As you can see, it's a very similar format. When we do all the different sizes, it's really critical because people are viewing on a bunch of different types of platforms. So typically speaking, what we'll do is in SplashDash, we'll run a sentiment analysis to figure out what is going to resonate with the audience. And then from there, we design ads from it. Now, of course, to a lot of people, they just need to see a before and after picture of a basement that they don't like, and then a new basement of the work that we've done. That's one of the most powerful ways to sell this information is to show people what's to gain, but also what's to lose if they keep their current basement. And most importantly, we want to reduce ad fatigue in the short term. Now, ad fatigue is really important because it is basically the measure of how much someone has seen your ad. In marketing, the typical stat of how many times someone needs to see your brand before they consider you is about 18. So every time we run an ad and that frequency number, in this case, as you can see, it's 18.96, that tells us it's time to replace that ad. If that number gets higher and higher and higher and higher, Facebook will eventually tell you it's time to replace your ad because it's fatigued. The consumer doesn't want to see the same ad over and over again. That's why you'll see different designs for different billboards all the time for businesses that are aggressively advertising. So coming up with fresh creative is really important for a business. And the reason for that is because we have this cognitive bias that new things are shiny and new information we pay more attention to. We take in old information and we discard it. If that old information keeps coming up, we're not going to pay attention to it. You want to focus on new. This does not mean, however, I want to be very clear, this does not mean that your offer has to be new. This simply means the way you're designing things has to be new, has to be fresh, has to be creative. It has to include new imagery for the brain to register, but keeping the same offer. Many times, if you have a good offer that's working, milk it until as long as it gets, until it doesn't work anymore. Do not change your offer. In fact, the offer is the one thing that I would not recommend changing for a very long time if you get it to work. Now, typical offers that work are going to be very clear. Things like this much off, things like percentage off, that's great, but it's not definite. the more definite the offer, and I'm going to show you an example in this video, the better it's going to perform. And if you want performance, you want to do less work, you want the client to spend less on ads, you really want to work through with them what the offer is going to be. I want to be very clear about this though. It is not your job to create an offer for the business. It is your job to communicate what the business is doing. You want to set that boundary very clearly with the business. Your responsibility is not to create an offer. Your responsibility is to communicate their offer. Now, you can leave feedback on their offer. You should not be creating it for them. You are getting paid to do digital marketing. You are not getting paid to run their business. I want to make that very clear that boundary needs to be set as soon as possible. The moment you start advising them on pricing, the moment you start advising them on offers, you've entered a whole different level of commitment that you should not sign up for. You're getting paid to communicate what they're doing. I find that very, very, very important for this. So when we do this, we really, really want to focus on first-party audiences that have no interests. This means don't put homeowners, don't put they like dogs, don't put they like cat. Let the first-party data audiences do the work for you. Now, in Google and Meta, the best way to do this is by actually uploading a customer data list into the ad platforms and keeping this updated as much as possible. Both of the ad platforms allow you to upload good customers versus bad customers. So the algorithm already knows who it's targeting. A lot of digital marketers are complaining about ad networks going more AI focused. Why would I want to spend my time putting in all these interests and trying to guess? Why would I not just let Facebook do it for me? If the devices are listening to you, it should know when to serve a basement ad. So I am all in on the AI just doing the work for me. I don't need to see the keywords. I don't need to see where it's going. I just need to see the clicks that I'm getting, and I just need to see the leads coming in. Now, if something doesn't come in, you can adjust then, but I'm fully reliant on AI doing its thing. And what does that mean? That means on Facebook, using no interest, using first-party data, letting the AI figure out what the best contacts are. On Google, that means using Performance Max. That is where Google is going. So if you're using Performance Max, you're optimizing the images, you're using video, you're using multimedia, because the search engines are very visual now. Gmail is very visual. Ad networks are very visual. The main thing you should be focusing on your brand is video production and photo. And I'm going to talk about how to deliver that at a reasonable rate in just a second so that you can get more results for your client. If you're focusing just on text-based and just on SEO, you're never going to grow. Your client's never going to grow. So I just want to make that very clear that you want to use that information as much as possible. The other thing I want to say here too is if you're running ad campaigns, you can retarget people based on the page views, the video views, all of those different types of things. But a major key that people don't typically know is that you can target other Facebook pages and other audiences that are shared within your business manager. So a lot of the times we'll work with a few businesses that are really good friends and we'll retarget each other's audiences because that'll allow us to reach similar types of customers. So as you get campaigns that are actually running, you can see in this case, we're focusing just on that URL. We're sending the ads just to that URL. And then the keywords at the top are the ones that are going to mainly focus on that information. And then the content will improve the conversion rates directly on the website. And I wanted to talk about sentiment just a little bit because if you're using the sentiment analysis data inside of SplashDash, you can see that 37 basement remodeling businesses in that area and 1,100 customer reviews. These were the top words that were used when businesses were being mentioned or being reviewed in that area. So when I actually design the landing page, I really make sure that I use a lot of those highlighted keywords inside of the sentiment analysis so that I can really understand what the homeowner values. Because again, if we're thinking about cognitive biases, if we're thinking about things that you can't see, the subconscious mind is thinking about, this is the data that's showing me that's what they care about. And I don't need to look into the customer's data to do this. I can do this before I talk to the customer. So I have a clear understanding that people in this case value these different traits. So confirming with the business that they do these things, for example, the owner is involved, the project manager is highly experienced, there's a clear job scope, you work within budget. A lot of the times this information sounds extremely obvious, but to the consumer, it's not. To the business owner, we will fail to communicate because we think because what we do every day is obvious. To the consumer, it's not. We have to communicate these things. I have found that with the rise of AI, with marketing, anybody can do marketing, right? Anybody can publish an article, anybody can do an ad. But the key thing here is that we communicate what's special about the business and what the market actually cares about. If we fail to do so, we'll spend money and not get results. So let's go through actually how reaching more people with Meta, but be there at search as well. And this comes down to attribution, right? I've talked to a lot of customers and I've understood a lot of customers' different stories when I talk to my clients. And typically what I'm doing in this case scenario is I'm trying to figure out how people actually find us longer than the last click. In this case, if they've seen our trucks, if they've seen our Facebook ads, if they've watched a video ad, if they've gone to our website, if they've gotten retargeted, and then they saw a poster, and then they went back to the search, and then they clicked this ad result, that's not a Google ad lead. And the data is going to tell you that it's a Google ad lead. And that's the problem with attribution. So the better you can get at talking to customers and understanding how they find you, the better your life will be. I'll give you a really good example that happened to me literally today. Because remember, everything I'm doing is speaking on experience. Today, I was on a call with a new lead, and she found us through whatever metric, whatever thing she found us. But I asked her, tell me the story of how you found us. Like, how did we meet here today? And she told me, well, I'm local. I walked on the trail. I saw your sign. I go to the place next to you. I saw your business. And then I was searching for companies. And then I saw your business there. And then I filled out the contact form. Where was the attribution there? It wasn't Google search. It was they saw me physically. Until I talked to the customer to better understand their attribution, I can't just say that's an SEO lead. That's the issue is until you understand the story of how people are finding you, and you do this by communicating with them as they come in to better understand why and how they found you, you can't attribute anything to any of these marketing sources. Your success, the client's success, is not because of one thing. It's a mix of things. And so the more you can get used to communicating that, the more successes that you're going to have. Now, there is a really good Harvard Business Review on actually persuasion. And one of the key persuasion mechanisms that you can have is getting that kind of data. And when you pitch, referencing that data. So before you propose to anybody, before you have any persuasion, reference data and have them trip over the truth. So just something there that I like to use in persuasion. And all of the strategies that I'm showing you right now will also help you with organic SEO. This is also important. And in fact, the first two clients there are ours. So it's kind of funny that they're ranking on top of each other. That happens a lot with DevelopMark. But what I want to mention to you is that everything that I'm doing is not ignoring SEO. However, where would you want to spend most of your time? Would you want to spend most of your time where the customer is getting 197 clicks, like I showed you inside of their Google Search Console? Or would you want to spend more of your time where there's thousands of clicks at risk? Which one are you going to spend more time optimizing? Well, of course, when there's money at risk, you want to be able to spend more time there, and you can charge more because there's more at risk. SEO is difficult to scale because there's only so many people searching in that area. Now, adding blog articles and doing infographics and doing the traditional strategies is great for national or for e-commerce, but when it comes to local, there comes to a point with a lot of DevelopMark clients where we've scaled to the point where there's not much more you can do with the SEO. And you should know when a client is there. It's typically when you do a position tracking report or when you do a GPT visibility report, as I'm going to show you for this business, that they're at the top. There's really not much you can do. You can maintain that result, but if they're looking for leads, if they're looking for the outcome, and you sell outcomes, you don't sell deliverables. Say that every single day. I sell an outcome. I don't sell a deliverable. When you sell a deliverable, you become like everybody else on Fiverr. You want to sell an outcome and you want to have some sort of performance guarantee or some risk guarantee there. For me, it's actually doing something wild, which I've been testing, which is taking a loan out against the retainer that I'm doing and then paying that loan with that retainer. And I'll talk more about that business model when I have some actual results of how that worked. But typically that's going to allow me to scale faster, but it's also making me have a lot of risk with it. But I'm very confident in the event that we get a new lead if I can perform well for them. So really, really important that this strategy will help organic SEO. Now, one thing that I've been talking about a lot lately too is the GPT visibility report. So this is something that you can actually run directly inside of SplashDash. And I'm not overcharging for this at all because I know a lot of companies that are doing this are charging a ridiculous amount just to do this. But this tool is basically just a quick snapshot of how well your business appears in the ChatGPT results on a simulated amount. So in this case, I'm going to do the keyword phrase basement finishing. Oh, I'm not sharing my tab. So I'm going to do the keyword phrase basement finishing. And as you can see, I can actually go ahead and edit some of these things. So I'm going to do the business's name. Then I'm going to do the URL. I'm going to put their location. I'm going to do the term. And then I'm going to select the analysis length. Now, depending on your goals here, if you want a wide range, pick a large analysis length. Now, just keep in mind that because SplashDash is actually searching in ChatGPT for all of these different terms, it's going to take you a while if you do 100 prompts. So I'm just going to do something small as we run this, and then we're going to see what those actual results are. So let's add basement finishing. Oh, error there. Let's go back. So let me put this information back in here. So with the GPT visibility report, it's really going to allow me to show the customer how well they're showing up in the map in the actual ChatGPT visibility area. And that's going to allow me to see if the website's doing well from that perspective. So let's go ahead and do basement finishing because that's the category I'm putting in. And then I'll do 25. So as that's loading, SplashDash is going to search 25 different prompts in that area. It's going to search for basement finishing, basement remodelers, best basement remodelers, basement remodeling pricing, etc. And then it's going to give me a result of how often that business appears. GPT visibility is becoming one of those things that is absolutely critical. So if you're attacking a business at all of these different angles, you're going to have a much higher success at their outcome. I don't give the customer the option of nitpicking the different things that they do with us. I'm selling the outcome. So I don't want to advertise. I don't want to do photos. I don't want to do videos. You want to get to the point to where you're not desperate for the business and you can say that I don't think this is going to work. You want 25 leads per week, but your site is not personalized. That's just not something that's going to work. We can't come up with an offer together. You won't take photos of your brand. You won't get on camera and talk about why you're a better option because the consumer has options. Because we're in capitalism, people can choose who they freely will. Anybody can start a business and start doing what you're doing. The key here is communicating why you're special. And let's find out what that is. And then let's communicate that over and over and over again. And as you start to see results, I'm going to keep telling you the results that you're getting because I know you're not going to attribute it to me because you don't want me to charge you more. So that's what's going to happen, just so you guys know as you follow this process. So I'm always looking at clients' data and clients' leads to see the successes and then sharing it with them so they're reminded of the value that I bring because they're always looking at other options as well. And so if you're doing the GPT visibility report, that's going to show you how well that page that you've made is actually ranking inside of the GPT results, which is really critical. Put in a category, as I would advise, is make sure that you put in a category that you're looking for because just for looking any category, they have roofing, they have siding, they have windows, they have doors, they have all this other stuff. So depending on the campaign that I'm focusing on for this business, that's where I'm going to focus on. If the business is paying us for all of the different verticals, as I showed you in the beginning of this video, and if you missed that part, go back and watch, but you want to do it by service. And so in this example, it's just one service that we're hyper-focusing on over the winter. So that's what I'm going to focus the results on. Make sense? So when we do that, we can start to think about building the campaign together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my actual campaign structure. While ChatGPT visibility is loading, I ran that report a couple seconds ago, or like a minute ago. While that's loading and GPT is searching and generating a report for us directly inside of SplashDash, let's go ahead and build a campaign together so I can show you what this is actually going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to go into Meta. All right. And I'm in the campaign builder right now. So inside of the campaign builder, you'll see that there's one ad that's running, and this was the time that we were running that, which is the actual, that's the roofing ad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new campaign. And the different metric that I'm going to use here is traffic. Now, the reason I'm going to use traffic is because I want more traffic going to the website. I want more engagement directly to the website. If you're doing monthly reporting, this is really important for you to know that if you're reporting social analytics, that's great. DevelopMark reports website analytics. We try to have everything go through the website. And the reason for that is because the business owns the website. It is extremely more valuable than some landing page an ad company sets up for them. It is way more valuable than some ad that's run to just nowhere, just TV. It's extremely valuable when the website's getting more clicks. Personally, I believe it helps it with organic results. It helps it with the automations that we set up on the website. We want everybody going to the website. And if you're an agency and you're doing this for customers, it's going to help your stats too. Whenever we turn on Facebook ads, all of the stats go up. Conversions go up, traffic goes up, time on page might go up. They watch more of the videos on the website. You want these stats to increase. So that's why I use traffic as a main thing there. So let's go back to this. While we were doing that, the GPT visibility report actually loaded. So let's go through that before I actually build the campaign. As you can see, there's a high confidence, which tells me that on average, if somebody searches for a basement finishing company in that area, we're going to show up in the AI results. And then from there, we showed up 19 out of the 25 terms. If I did a bigger analysis of this, obviously, then we would have maybe a lower confidence score or maybe not. And then you can see that SplashDash has actually simulated some of the keyword phrases that we're going to be able to search inside of there. And as we look at the return, you can see that we're being positively mentioned in those results there. So I can tell the customer we're actually showing up really well inside of GPT. If GPT searches, what are the top basement finishing companies near Woolgate, Connecticut? If that's what the search term is, on average, we're going to show up for that when we do that. So basically what's going on here is SplashDash is simulating a lot of these terms, and that allows me to talk to the customer about how well they're showing up. It also allows me to look and see where they're not showing up, which I think is really important. This makes complete sense that they're not showing up for this, primarily because they don't offer that service. So that makes sense. There's nowhere on the website that is mentioning that term. So that's why they're not going to be able to show up for that. This also makes sense because they don't do financing. This also makes sense because they don't do remediation. They don't do this type of window installation, and they don't do spray foam installation. So a lot of the times when you run this report, you're going to see a lot of the services that your client doesn't do inside of the not mentioned, and that's normal. If, for example, things that are mentioned are on the website and you're focusing on aren't in the non-mentioned, you need to do better AEO, LLMO, GEO, whatever you want to call it. You want to make sure they're showing up better inside of the AI search results. Now, notice I didn't just search basement finishing contractors. You got to put the town in there. SplashDash is built to put the client's town in there to make you either look good or look bad, depending on your situation. If you're in sales, you want to show them the opportunity. If they're a client, you want to retain them. So you want to communicate what's working well. But if you're in sales, you want to communicate what's not working well and tell them you can improve that visibility score. For this client, I typically run this up on a monthly basis, and scheduling is coming soon to SplashDash. So eventually you'll be able to schedule these kinds of reports. However, in this case, they're very visible. So I'm very happy about that. And as you can see, when I actually search inside of the real results, this is the term that SplashDash searched. You can see their business is being mentioned there. And there you have it. It's actually mentioning the page that is optimized for that. So internal pages still matter for visibility. And remember, guys, you're not going for clicks with AI. You're going for visibility. So the more visible you can be, the better. Now, if you're not showing your client this on a localized basis, on a monthly basis, and you're not doing this ongoing, they have no idea if they're ranking in ChatGPT. So that's why I like using the visibility report. So back to the ads. We're going to set up a traffic ad. We're going to continue. And then from here, I'm going to use the manual campaign traffic setup. The reason why I use manual is because I've been doing this for a while, so I kind of know what I'm doing. When I name the campaign, I'm just going to put the client's name. And then I'm going to put the ad type that we're doing, which is going to be basement finishing. And I just want to let you guys know too, if you're working in an ad account that has a lot of different businesses associated with it, you are going to want to put your agency's name directly to it. So I'll do stuff like that. So the customer, if they log in here, if I log in here and there's 1,000 ads running in this ad account, that's not the case. But a lot of the ad accounts we work with, there's 400 ads running. So I just want to make sure that I know which one's which. And then from there, I'm going to declare there's no special ad categories here. We do work with some politicians, so we did have to go through this process a couple of times, but that doesn't mean we're going to do it right now. And then as we go next, we're going to go ahead and set the ad set name to retargeting. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I am just going to start with retargeting. There's probably a lot of people that are at the top of the funnel for this business that are probably just going to need the service. So once they see the ad, they're going to become leads. I'm going to send all the traffic over to the website, as I mentioned before. And then from here, I'm going to just go ahead and set the daily budget. For this case, I'm going to start with a simple daily budget of $5. If the results start improving or if we start getting good deliverability, then I'll start to actually increase that. But for every ad that we do, we typically do a $5 per day ad spend, and then we'll do multiple ads for that same offer. So to paint a picture, we'll have 10 ads running. Each of the ads are the same offer, same service type. Each of them are at $5 per day. That's a $50 per month spend. And then that's a $1,000 per month or whatever the monthly spend is there for that ad. So typically that's one service category, 10 different ad creatives, 10 different offers, small monthly amount. And then you'll have a situation where one person is seeing multiple ads at a time. So just want to be clear about how we do handle the creative there. You don't want to put a ton of money here, by the way, when you start. You really don't want to do that. I found that ads perform the best with small amounts of money over a long period of times with a lot of creative. So today we're going to do 2 pieces of creative. So that's going to allow you to see how we handle that process. We want to start this today. And then for here, you can use the saved audience if you have one. In this case, I'm actually going to make an audience. Again, something really critical that I do here is I actually target their location. A lot of businesses will just put in a city or a town, but I try to get specific with their location. And in this case, you can see it's right there. So that's the location we're going to be targeting. And then I'm going to put a 5-mile radius. And the reason why I'm doing that, just so you guys are aware, is people typically have seen this brand out and about in this area. And as I mentioned before, if you're going for conversions, which is ultimately your goal, everything you do is focused on the sale. If you're thinking about how many times somebody has to see you before they turn into a customer, you really want to think about where you're going to get the highest ad lift right away. And typically that is right in front of their business. So I'll show you an example. I just asked ChatGPT while I was saying that. Typically, people need to see you 7 to 12 times before they purchase their inquiry. So if you start targeting locally right away, you're going to already be almost at that number because people have seen you before. So all they need to know is be reminded that you exist on Facebook or Instagram for them to consider your business. And if they search, you have Google ads running too. And you can also see that typically for a lot of these bigger services, it's over weeks or months. So if you think about that, you really want to make sure that the ads are running for a longer period of time. And when they have to consider you, they're going to remember everything that you've done. So I always make that point with clients when I'm working with them. So I typically will do a 5-mile radius. Major key too, guys, major key is that people or the client can see their own ads. That's a reminder to them of the beautiful, amazing design that you've made for them. They're seeing it every day. Their friends are seeing it every day. Even if it's getting no leads, it strokes their ego, as my ego is stroked when I see anything that has develop mark on it. So if you can focus on getting them to see their own ads, that's going to give them reaffirmation that it's working. Worst thing you can do is run an ad and the client's like, is the ad on? That's the worst thing you can do. You want the customer seeing the ad. So that's major key right there. So as I go down, and as this starts performing too, by the way, then I'll start expanding. But I really want to make sure that we own the local market. So that's why I'll do 5 miles. If you really want to make sure the client sees their own ad, you can do 1 mile and you can do a different ad set for that just to make sure that they're seeing their own ads, etc. But a lot of the times that's a little unnecessary. So let's go back down and then continue that targeting. So I'm going to change this back to 5 miles. A little bit about information. So let's keep going. And then from here, you can switch to original audience if you would like to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down, and then from here, I'm going to add some audience suggestions. I'm going to search some existing audiences that I have. And this is where I'm going to add a lot of the retargeting lists that I have already created. And these are lookalike lists too. So I don't want the ad platform learning. I don't want the ad platform trying to figure out what's to or who to target, where to target. All I know is that the ad is in the middle. You don't want the ad to be broad. You don't want the ad to be narrow. You want it to be right in that middle proponent there. And if you're running a Facebook page, if you're running ads, if you're running anybody who has an email list, etc., you really want to make sure that you have an estimated audience size that's higher than 1,000. In this case, it's saying fewer, but once the ad runs, I'll be able to tell if this is actually correct or not. So I'm going to do that. And then the ages that I'm going to put is similar to the ages that I saw in SplashDash, which was typically around 25 to 65 plus. I'm going to keep it really wide open. Remember, guys, you don't want to define this too much. As you start defining this too much, it starts narrowing the ads too much, and you're going to get way less results. So a couple of major key things that I've just said here that I just want to recap. Target very local because you already have the brand lift. People already know they've existed. They've seen them a lot of times. Target extremely close to the business so they see their own ads. One offer, multiple creatives, and then you want to make sure that you're not detailing too much of the audience. Let Meta's AI actually do that through the pixel and through the targeting that you're doing. So I'm going to put nothing inside of there, as I was saying. Let's go next. And then I'm going to name this traffic ad Basement Finishing 1. Again, guys, make sure you title everything because as you start doing this at scale, things can get really confusing. And then the page, I'm going to choose the client's page. It'll choose their Instagram account. All right. And then from there, I'm going to create the ad. So as you can see, now I can upload a couple of different things here. But in this case, I'm going to upload the actual graphics that we've designed. I'm going to take this landing page. This is where we're going to send a lot of the traffic to. This landing page has all of the sentiment analysis. Also, I just want to make it very clear, this is not a page that's no index that the user can't navigate through the website. All of that advice that users should not be able to navigate on a PPC page, it shouldn't be able to navigate, it should not be on the main website, is absolute crap. You want to make sure that the website you're sending it to is the website that's also ranking for the organic search results. If I was incorrect on this, this would not be ranking. Why not just send it to the website? People make it so much more than it has to be. Make the website good and send people there. Now, if there's reasons selectively why you're doing that, maybe you don't want existing clients to see promotions, that's okay. But you really want to make sure that where you're going to rank this page for SEO is where the Facebook ads traffic is looking for. Because if you've read any documents that Google has released ever, one of the main things that they look at is social signals. So the more popular a page gets by traffic, by rankings, etc., the more likely it is to get more social rankings. So I just send it right to the website. I don't try to send it offside of the website. So I'm comfortable with that. So I'm going to take that URL. I'm going to put that right in here. And then I'm going to put it in display link as well. So now we at least have somewhere where it's going to go. And I'm going to do a call button. Now, because we use call tracking, it's really important that we put the business's direct phone number inside of there. Because we manage everything in a CRM, I don't really need to see too much data on the call tracking specifically. Like I don't have to see exactly where every call comes from because I can just see it through Facebook, or I'm sorry, their CRM. But you can see we have 7 tracking phone numbers going to this actual forward to phone number. So that's the phone number that I'm going to use inside of the actual Meta ads campaign. And I'm going to tell you another reason why for that is if the customer is going to see this ad, which they probably are, they're going to see the phone number that's attached there. And if you want to avoid questions, just use their main phone number. Call tracking is really useful in the beginning of a working relationship if you're trying to see what's working and what's not. But over time, more established brands start getting really frustrated with all the tracking phone numbers that are out there. And so generally speaking, when an account gets really mature with us, we'll typically just make it their main phone number and track the CRM. We don't need to see all of the level tracking because attribution is usually incorrect anyways. So let's go back here. So then from there, I'm going to go ahead and add some of the different creative. Now, in this case, I'm going to use photos and media. And so in Basecamp, where we store all this information, I'm going to go to the different designs that are here. Now, I have our designers do this. Anytime we get an ad account, we just have a designer create multiple different versions of what we're going to be advertising so that we're really prepared. Again, this starts with a photo shoot, or if the client has photos, you can use that as well. Or we make it a non-negotiable. We replaced hiring SEOs with actually hiring media people. We actually don't even do the SEO anymore. It's just baked into our product in general. We've systemized it down to that level. I would rather pay for a photographer and a videographer all day than having an SEO person on staff. Maybe even an ads person on staff in the near future. Like we only need one. We don't really need too much. So I want to make that very clear with you guys. So from there, let's go ahead and take design number 1. Oops, I moved it out of the folder. Let's go ahead and take design number 1. You can see it's in all of the different sizes, so that it's going to work really well. I'm not going to have to think too much about that. I've gone ahead and downloaded that folder directly onto my computer, and then I'm going to go back to the tab. So one thing to really be careful about when you're running ads nowadays is all of the different what like AI features that Meta has. I'll typically turn them all off. I don't really want to see any of them, so I'll turn them all off. Like for example, I don't want to use their branding feature, etc. I just turn that off. Going forward, let's go ahead and upload some of the photos. So I'm going to go ahead and take the photos that were inside of that download, and then I'm going to drag and drop them inside of here, and those will be the photos that we use for the actual ad. So let's go ahead and see that. All right. So now you can see I'm uploading all of those photos in all the different sizes to this one little folder. And then I'm going to be able to standardize and optimize for each of the mobile viewing devices here. Now, I'm a perfectionist, guys. I like when I see my clients' ads. In fact, if I were to go to Instagram right now on my phone and I were to like scroll through it, I would probably see like 15 of our clients' ads. One, because 90% of DevelopMarket's revenue is local, and that's on purpose. I hate working virtually. And 2, it's because I like to see things in the flesh, just like they like seeing it in the flesh. So I always make sure they see it and I see it, because I also need to make sure it's working. I don't know if Meta's lying to us. I like seeing my own ads. I don't know if you guys feel the same. So let's go ahead and go ahead and post this. So I'm going to select one, and then you're going to see it's going to give you the option to do the 3 different sizes. You're going to have the square, which is the original. Then I'm going to replace the story version. Okay, see that? Critical. Leave some space at the bottom. You're going to have a lot of meta stuff overlapping the space there. So I like to leave a little space there so that when people see the click more or the learn more in the description of the business, they can do that. And then I'm going to replace the right column. So there you have it, right? This is what you want to see. You want to see all of the different versions of them perfectly optimized like this. Now I'm going to take a screenshot of this, and then I send that to the customer to show them what it's going to look like. So let's go next. And then we can add our primary text, our headline, and our description, and then a call to action. So for this case, because the website's call to action is get a free estimate, that's what I'm going to use. I'm not going to complicate things. So I'm just going to go ahead and do get a free estimate. All right. The description, I'm just going to use something that's on the website right now. Just keep in mind, guys, for time's sake, I'm just going to do this really quickly, and then I'll go back and optimize a lot of this stuff later. However, I can just go into ChatGPT. I can have ChatGPT analyze this URL, just like that. And then because GPT-5 can actually analyze URLs now, you can see that it's going to have all the information come in directly from that. I'm going to do what lazy vibe marketers do, and I'm just going to screenshot this page of what's required from Meta. I'm going to drag and drop that just like that. And then I'm going to say, knowing what you know about the business, fill in the fields. Just like that. To recap, I took the URL because I need to write ad copy for that page. right? I dumped it inside of ChatGPT. Okay. I had to analyze the URL. This is a newer feature that GPT can use, which is really useful. Now that I have context, I took a screenshot of what Meta's looking for, and then I put that directly inside of GPT. And now I'm going to have GPT give me some options. So let's go ahead and see what it spits out. Then I'm going to take that text and then use it. So there we go. So I'm going to use this text. Notice, guys, there's no emojis. There's no exclamation points. There's no superlatives. There's no we're the best, we're elite. There is facts, okay? And so if you read scientific advertising, you will see what I'm talking about. It's kind of hard to explain on a little meeting like this, but you want to just lead with facts. You don't want to lead with excitement. You don't want to use exclamation points. You don't want to use emojis. Please do not diminish the seriousness of your brand doing that kind of stuff. It's just a bad look. So as we go here, avoid this like the plague. Do not turn this on ever. Meta's going to want you to turn on a lot of these AI features. Please don't do so. And then let's take a look at the other options. Get a free estimate, description. See how short and sweet this information is? It looks good. Now, in this copy text here, I might add a couple of things. A is the name of the business. B is the website. So I might actually add the website here. C is I want to add the actual phone number that people are going to call. Just like that. And that's it. So we have the location here, which is important. We have the name, the website, and the phone number, clear call to action, small description, etc. Then I'm going to go next. Avoid this like the plague. I can't even believe Meta does this. It's actually criminal that they're doing this to businesses. So many businesses are running ads that have this level of information on it. That is just wrong, in my opinion. Let me know if you guys agree. Like, this is insane. I can't even believe they would let somebody run this. This just goes to show you that the ad platforms are not in your best interest when it comes to the creative and using AI. I think for audience targeting, they are, but for straight creative, like that's insane. Please make sure none of this is selected. And in fact, I'm going to downvote this right now because it's that bad. So I'm going to go ahead and skip. Turn all of this off. Okay. You see how they have all of this stuff? Literally turn it all off. Don't have any of this stuff on because it's going to change the way an ad looks. It's going to mess up your creative. You want to just keep your creative like this, super simple, nice and sweet, etc. Then done. So there we have it. On the right side, you can see the actual creative and what it would look like. I like to send this to the customer, screenshot this, and just let them know that the ads are running and they can see what it looks like. And they're going to get all excited when they see it on the actual page. And then take that information, and then I like to store it. In my case, I put it in Slack so that our team can see it as well. And then we actually use this as sales material too in the future. So I'll keep a lot of these ads and I'll put them in a folder, and then I'll use it as sales material in the future. And it's really lucrative for you to do that. So you can see all that's there. The phone number is there. The creative is there. This right here is not on, right? So just double check because sometimes that gets slipped on. I don't know if Meta does that on purpose. Looks good. If you want to put different options there, you can. And then if you want to actually set up website events for pixels, you can. In this case, I'm just using their customer data, so I'm not doing that. And then we're good to go. Now, I'm not going to publish the ad because remember, I'm publishing 2 ads right now. I'm going to mark this one green because I'm already done with that, so I don't confuse myself of which ones I'm running. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to download the second version of the ad. Remember, guys, I'm doing one offer, multiple creatives. So in Meta, now that this is in draft, I'm going to go ahead and click X, and I'm going to go back to the main page, and I'm going to see my draft is here. What I like to do is I'm going to turn this one off because we're not running that anymore. I like to pin the ad because when you start doing this for businesses and you start having 45 different creatives for different services, it gets confusing what's running and what's not. So the pin feature is really useful in this case scenario. So I'm going to click pin. And then from there, I'm simply just going to duplicate this ad because remember, I'm doing multiple creatives for one type of service. So I'm not going to do all this work again. I'm just going to go ahead and do this and duplicate this ad. And I want to call out something really important right now. Notice I'm not doing one campaign with multiple ads. I'm doing one campaign with one ad. One campaign, one ad, one offer, one landing page. That landing page is the landing page of the organic URL of that website. Super critical for you guys to understand that because I found it to be better with deliverability, tracking performance. So I just like it to be super clean. So if you're ever in a DevelopMark Meta ads account, you'll see 75 ads going, and that's for a reason. So Just want to make that very clear. Try it out yourself, and I promise you'll get more performance. So for this one, I'm going to change the title. Instead of it being a copy, I'm just going to do number 2. Very simple. And then retargeting, I'm literally going to change nothing here. Same budget of $5. Over time, as you're running a ton of these ads, you're going to be able to cut off what's working and cut off what's not. If you decide to turn on the leads that are coming through the page, you can, and you can see what's actually converting through the website. I don't bother with any of that. I've told you about my attribution thought process. None of it even matters because people find you through such different ways. However, cost per click is a definite indicator if something's working well or not, but also not. So that's just different philosophy that you want to think about. So I'll keep it really simple, $5. I might cut it off in the near future if it starts getting too much expense versus the other ones. And then here I'll do 2. Now, you see how fast that is? So I've just duplicated the ad. All I'm going to do is go down to where the media is, which is right here. And then I'm going to go up. I'm going to get the media. That's not going to change. Next, this is what's going to change. So now I'm going to get the second file, which is the version 2 of the ad. Same offer, different creative. I'm going to drag and drop that directly inside of here. Let me try to actually just do it this way. So I'm going to grab that. 2, there we go. I'm going to drag and drop that inside of here. While we're waiting for that to load, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say rewrite with a different option. Okay. So now I'm going to get a different version of the copy that's going there. Then you'll see once my ads are in here, I'm going to go ahead and just optimize it. So you can see version 1, right? You could see version 2, and I would do this with 15 different creatives. You guys are probably now seeing why you need a photography, videography, and designer. Those are the roles I'm putting a lot of value on. Anything that's like content driven I'm not really putting too much value on that right now. The agency is really looking more into creative. So if I can send somebody out to get photos and videos of a business, I can get a designer to design around that and launch 35 ads for one offer. Each ad is spending $1 a day. That's how you're going to get results. You're not going to get results spending $1,000 a day on just one ad. People need to see all this different type of creative. So as I go through there, I'm going to go ahead and put that creative there. Okay. So that is not the square version. The square version is here. All right. So that's good. Then I'm going to replace the story version, as I mentioned before. So this one's going to be for the phone if people see it vertically. Then I'm going to replace the actual right column version. And now we have a nice looking ad that's optimized for all 3 listings. Same process, screenshot it. Then here, the only thing I'm going to change is the copy. Remember, guys, I got my copy from ChatGPT by pasting the URL. And then as I go back inside of here, I'm going to change this copy. I'm not going to change this. I still want the critical business information listed down below, but I'll do that. And then I'll kind of just read it just to make sure it looks good. Looks great. And then from there, get a free estimate. I'll change the description just to make sure it's unique. Facebook likes testing different descriptions. And the only change I'm going to make is I'm going to actually put service in Connecticut. Or actually, no, it says nearby towns. I'm sorry. I'm actually going to keep that there because we're targeting so local. So there we go. So now we have the description there. I'm going to ignore all of this. I just talked about how bad this is. And then I turn all of this off. And see how they just like sneak it in there? Turn it off. Turn all of it off. Unless you want to experiment. I don't want to experiment. I want to do what works. I want to do what I know works. I don't want any of that there. So click done. And the frustration that you'll see is like, you'll keep that stuff on and then you'll get a message on your phone and it's a client that's like, hey, the freaking description's wrong. This is not the right food. This is not the right service. Why is it showing up that way? I can't read this. And it's like, it's not you, it's Meta's doing these different tests through it. So be careful with that. On the right side, you see the ad running. And then from there, I will just go ahead, turn all this off, make sure none of that's on, and I'm good to go. So to recap, now I have 2 ads that are pinned, as you can see. Both of them are going to spend $5 per day. Both of them are going to drive the traffic directly to the website. All of that traffic is going to go directly to a contact form that we track and we monitor and we filter spam. A lot of spam coming through website contact forms. I can make a video about that in the near future of how to avoid that. And then when users fill out that form, they're going to get results and I'm going to be able to track that. So from here, I would add 5, 10, whatever it is, 20 more, depending on how serious the campaign is, and then make sure we're reaching those budget requirements. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and click the review and publish button. There's a little arrow with Instagram. I'm just going to ignore that. And then add in the future, if I'm going to add more ads to it, I can just duplicate that ad and keep going with that same audience. Key point here, guys, you want the same audience to see different ads with the same offer all the time. So the more you can do that, the better. Now, as we start doing this, I'm going to carefully look and see how the leads are coming in. And in this case, you can see that the leads will come in directly through the email, and I will read that and I will talk to the customer about those names. I won't talk to the customer about the clicks. I'll talk to them about who's actually contacting the website. Now, it's no surprise that when you go to the website and you look and see how the landing page looks, in this case, it's this version, and I go to see the different types of things that they can do, it's no surprise that what we're highlighting on the website is actually becoming the data that's directly inside of a contact form submission. So really, really think about that. People are reading that text. It is a framing issue for you to say to a customer, for them to think that people don't read the text of their website. This person must be spending $20,000 to get this done. I'm pretty positive they're going to read everything about your brand. And they might have just found you through a Facebook ad. So you can do that kind of stuff directly through the forms, just analyzing that stuff as much as possible. Now, we're going to get to the second part of the live stream. We're not over. There's still a lot more to cover here, and I think you're going to walk away with a lot of information. However, during this part, we're going to talk about my favorite creative hacks. So I've talked a lot about creative over the past hour. Creative is the driving perspective of getting the business more results. But if you just try to go in and do creative, you're going to lose. So I'm going to share with you what my favorite creative hacks are for you to get way more results. Let's start with the simple thing. The most important part of your job in this AI world is to get creative for the business. Everybody can write an SEO article. Everybody can optimize site tags. In fact, my content management system, Duda, has a button where it writes the tags for every single page on the website. So that's irrelevant. Anybody can set up citation listings. Any idiot on the planet can log into Yext and make sure someone's citations are correct. AI is now responding to reviews. AI is now answering phone calls. So what is the thing that you can do that's not commoditized? And that is media. So let's talk about that for a second, how to get the most out of your media. But before we do that, I need a San Pellegrino break. It tastes so good in the glass too. So this is an email that we got literally today, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to do with this. We got an email that just basically said, everything looks good. Clients have signed their photo release consents, etc. If you're working with businesses and they have clients, have the clients sign a video release form. More importantly, if you're running ads, and I want to make a video in the future about how we actually create commercials for businesses, because we use paid actors. And the reason for that is because there's longevity in it. And I want to show you that process in a future video. And those become ads as well, also on TV, also their website. And that's kind of the thing I want to talk about, is the longevity of a video, how much you can squeeze out of a photo and out of a video versus an SEO article. So let's talk about that. So stage photo shoots. Think about how much I can do with these 3 photos. I went there one time, a photographer went there, and in this case, they were on payroll. So if you're using a contractor, that's a little different. They got these 3 photos. Consider what I can do with these photos. 1 is I can put it on their website. 2 is I can put it on their citations. 3 is I can put it on their Google Maps listing. 4 is I can put it on Yelp. I can put it on Better Business Bureau. 5, I can use it to design postcards. I can use it to design ads. I can use it to design stuff in videos. I can use it to print stuff to actually put it inside of the business, etc. The longevity of a photo is absolutely insane. That is the number one deliverable, that and video on the website. But those 3 deliverables are what's going to give the business the most sustainable results possible. So when we take those photos, we're really thinking about how much we can use that information for the different ads that we're going to be running. That turns into clear creative. Now, in this case, the box wasn't brown when we did this. We turned it white and we put the logo. But you can see how that stuff is actually going to be used in so many different types of things in the near future. That creative is what's going to get the business results. The business is not going to get results because of some text you put on a website. It's going to get results because somebody resonated with the image or the graphic that you put. And in this case, when we ran sentiment analysis, we wanted to highlight of the business that there was a damage-free guarantee, which is just marketing 101. However, when you get specific on that offer and you get specific with the brand, it can generate a lot of results for that business without you doing all of the traditional things that you thought you needed to do to get them results, like more organic website traffic or paid traffic. Getting the most out of videos is absolutely critical. So I want you to think about this a little bit. And I'm going to bring the video back up on the screen in just a second here. But think about what you get out of these 5 videos. We had a videographer go there one time. They interviewed 5 people. Think about the duration of how much this content can go. And I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to do that. So here is the actual Frame.io file of one of the video interviews. And it's really straightforward. The client sits in front of the camera and they talk about their experience with the brand, etc. But this was a one-time investment that we made to go out there and get this information. As an agency, this puts you in front of the customer. This allows you to deliver something to them that other people aren't delivering to them. This allows you to talk to their customer, which is giving you insights as to how they found this brand. Again, back to attribution and understanding a story. Don't look at data, find the story. Two very different things. And then I'm going to show you how you can maximize the living crap out of this. One-time investment to go there, and then we get all this information from it. So let's go ahead and look at this information. So if I go here and I download this video, and I'm going to download it in a low resolution just because I'm showing you what I'm going to do with this, then I already have a website video that's going to go on their page. So if you go to their website, in this case, it's ctskin.com, which is a business we work with, you'll see that on their website, we put a gallery of different video testimonials that are on there. Now, which one do you think is more important? A business talking about itself or people talking about that business? Of course, it's people talking about that business. Is there a possibility that where we're running ads, people may know who this is and they may reference it? They're going to engage with this a lot more than they're going to engage with an article on a website. So we can put it on the video testimonials, which is also on YouTube. And Google loves that YouTube connection because it owns the platform as well. Further than that, we're going to go to Opus Clip, which is a really great platform for you to take long form videos and turn it into multiple videos. And we're going to upload that video that we got from that video testimonial of that client. Now, Opus Clip is really great at taking long form videos and then breaking them down into short form versions for you. What's that going to do for you? Well, it's going to allow you to get, in this case, I'm going to do vertical videos. It's going to allow you can do all three too, by the way, it just costs more credits. It's going to allow you to get multiple different ad creatives for that one video of that testimonial so that you can take that one video that was recorded, have different 15 to 30 second highlights of it, and maximize the reach that you're going to get from that video. So as we go back to Opus Clips, you're going to see that it's going to take that information and it's going to compile it into multiple different shorts, quote unquote, or videos. And that's going to allow you to reach way more people with that one video. So your little investment that you've made is now having videos being posted on the website. It's having videos being posted as shorts or Instagram. It's having videos being posted as ads that you can use for long term. And you took a one-time investment to do so. But I don't want to forget SEO because SEO is also a really important thing too. So while that loads, let's go back to the presentation. If you upload long videos into Opus Clips, you're going to be able to have these videos downloaded so that you can use them for future use. So that one video turns into a lot. This is allowing me to and I've just started doing this with my channel. I've neglected my channel for a long time just because I've been busy with my real business. However, it's going to allow you to schedule things for the long term and SEO optimize that. That video could end up on the client's website using a YouTube embed, transcribing that YouTube video directly as a blog post, and now you have actual unique blog articles being written directly on the client's website. That is major key because that allows you to scale the SEO strategy while also scaling the ad strategy at the same time. So when that video is done, you're going to get a bunch of these little bite-sized clips that are like this, and those can be perfectly used for meta ads with multiple different types of videos from that one video. And if you're like me, you want to do the activities that you're going to invest time and energy once and then get much more results out of. So that's all I got for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.